After I totally flunked my exam, my mother seized the paper from my hands and shouted, "You're the greatest mistake of my life. Every single day, I wish I had terminated this pregnancy. You've ruined everything I ever desired." My father didn't even attempt to stand up for me. He just gave me that icy, disgusted stare and remarked, "Why are you still here? You'll never achieve anything." I stood there trembling as they enumerated every reason for their disdain towards me. Eventually, I walked out, slamming the door behind me, resolved never to return. 5 years later, my dad left a voicemail, crying, "Okay, I don't even know how to begin this without sounding overly dramatic, but I need to express this somewhere, and I think people here will understand just how messed up this is. I had always sensed a strange tension with my mum, but that day was off the charts. This all began a few years ago when I was 18 and still living at home. I grew up knowing my mum wasn't exactly the warmest person. Sure, she had her good days when she'd bring home my favourite snacks, but mostly she seemed irritated by my mere existence. My dad was more of a background figure, just sitting at the table, glued to his phone, barely looking up unless my mum started yelling. Then he'd just sigh or mutter something about responsibility. We weren't one of those families that had movie nights or discussed feelings. My parents acted as if I were a constant nuisance. I just tried to keep a low profile and avoid upsetting them. One day, after returning from school, I already knew my exam hadn't gone well. I didn't even want to look at the grade. I was in the kitchen, phone in one hand and exam paper in the other, trying to figure out how to break the news that I had failed. My mum was already in a mood, furiously wiping down the counters as if the crumbs had offended her, not even glancing at me. Dad was on his laptop, likely engrossed in the news, pretending not to notice the tension. What struck me was how quickly she snatched the paper from my hand, as if she had been waiting for me to mess up. I barely managed to say 2 words before she took it and began her tirade, not even bothering to check the actual grade, immediately moving to call me a disappointment. She rattled off the usual grievances about wasted money and my lackadaisical attitude, as if I hadn't put in any effort. I tried to interject, insisting that I had studied, but she just raised her voice, waving the paper in my face, invading my personal space to the point where I could smell her perfume. She began listing all the ways I had failed her, starting with the fact that she felt compelled to have me. It was as if she had been saving this speech for years, declaring that I was the biggest mistake of her life, that every day she wished she had terminated the pregnancy, that I had ruined all her aspirations. Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion, not even shouting at that point, just cold. I stood there, unsure of how to react. I glanced at my dad, who was looking at me with that same disgusted expression, not even attempting to intervene. He stated, "Why are you still here? You'll never achieve anything." Then he went back to scrolling through his phone. I wanted him to say something, anything, but he just looked away. She continued, lamenting how she had wanted to travel and how instead, she was stuck at home with a son who couldn't even pass a basic exam. She dredged up old grievances, like the time I broke a vase when I was 6, or when I got detention in 9th grade, as if she had kept a running tally. She called me selfish, lazy, a burden, saying she should have heeded her brother's advice against having kids. My dad added that I had always been a problem, comparing me to her brother, always stirring up trouble and never taking responsibility. He accused me of merely using them for food and shelter, claiming I would never survive on my own. In that moment, something snapped within me. I attempted to reclaim the paper, but my mum swatted my hand away. I said, "Stop speaking to me like that," but she just laughed. I declared I wouldn't stand there and take it anymore. She got in my face again, challenging me to leave, claiming I'd be back in a week begging for money. At that point, I lost it. I picked up my phone, already cracked from before, and hurled it against the wall. It bounced off and hit the floor, the battery cover flying off. I turned to leave, but my dad blocked the door with his arms crossed, insisting I couldn't go until I cleaned up my mess, meaning the phone and the chaos I had made of their lives. I shoved past him, and he stumbled, but didn't pursue me. My mum shouted that I better not return, slamming the door behind me. Outside, her voice echoed, but I kept walking, unsure of my destination, with no real plan, just my wallet and the clothes on my back. As darkness fell, I wandered down my street, not thinking about what would come next. I texted my friend Atlas, asking if I could crash at his place for the night. I didn't want to explain just yet. I sat on the curb for a while, trying to determine if I was truly free, or if I had just made a monumental mistake. I could see my old house from the block, lights still on, my mum's voice resonating through the open window. I knew I couldn't go back, not after that. Here's the crux. My mum has always blamed me for her life not unfolding as she had hoped. She had all these aspirations before I was born, but her family pressured her to settle down and have a child, to do the right thing. She never got over it and directed her frustration at me whenever she felt trapped. My dad just went along with whatever maintained the peace, but deep down, he resented me too, because I was a reminder of his unmet expectations. It wasn't merely about me failing a test, it was about them needing someone to blame. I sat there for a while, scrolling through old texts and looking at photos from what I thought were happier times. My hands trembled, not from fear, but pure rage. I didn't cry. I felt a peculiar sense of relief, as if I had finally escaped something. I knew I couldn't just return in the morning and pretend nothing had happened. I wasn't going to allow them to continue treating me poorly just because I was their child. So, that's how I left home. No grand farewell, no packing boxes, just me, my wallet, and a nearly useless phone. I had no idea what was next, but I wasn't going back. I didn't care if I ended up sleeping on Atlas's floor for a month. At least it wouldn't be under their roof. I might wonder if I'd regret it, but I was certain I'd regret staying even more. That's all for now. I'll update if anything significant occurs, but honestly, I just needed to share this. If you've experienced something similar, you'll understand. If not, perhaps just hug your child or something. Update. I didn't think I'd actually post an update, but a few people reached out after the last one and I'm still furious, so why not? In short, my mum wished she had aborted me after I flunked an exam while my dad sat silently. I stormed out, slamming the door, and didn't look back. The first odd thing was how quiet Atlas was when I arrived. I texted him from the curb, and he simply sent me the address without asking any questions. When I got there, his mum wasn't home, which was a relief. I just collapsed on the couch. My phone was nearly dead with no charger in sight. I stared at the ceiling for an hour, reading and rereading the texts from my mom that kept coming in. Initially, it was her shouting, then her predicting I'd regret this and wishing me good luck on the streets. Eventually, she began complaining about how I left my room messy and how I owed her for everything she had done for me, stating she would sell my belongings. Atlas suggested I mute her, so I did. The next morning, I woke up before anyone else. My phone was finally dead, so I sat listening to the birds outside, not really thinking, just feeling tired. Atlas's mum entered and saw me. She simply nodded and made some toast without asking. That was honestly the best part, no one prying into my business. At school, some noticed I wasn't going home. A few made comments, but no one really tried to delve into my situation. I kept my head down, trying to figure out my next steps. Then, the annoyance began. My mum started flooding my social media with posts about ungrateful children and how parents are never appreciated. She shared lengthy rants, half of which weren't even about me, but clearly targeted at me. Family members began messaging, asking, "What happened? Is your mum okay? Why are you making her so upset?" As if I were the villain. I simply sent a screenshot of her text, where she stated she wished I had never been born. Some stopped messaging after that, while a couple of aunts said, "That's just how she gets when she's angry. Don't take it personally." My dad never texted, just remained in the background while my mum did all the shouting. That's his style. It always has been. He used to be more relaxed, but he's grown colder over the years. caring more about appearances than what goes on at home. He never cared about my actions unless they reflected poorly on him. As for my mum, she has always been bitter. She had aspirations to live in the city, travel, and have her own life. Her family pushed her to have me young, and she never let that go. She used to say if it weren't for me, she'd be out there living her best life instead of stuck in the suburbs cooking for ungrateful people. After a few days, I realized I couldn't just wait for them to calm down because they weren't going to. I went to school and used the library computers to start rearranging things. The first thing I did was change every password I could recall because I knew my mum was incredibly nosy. I made sure she couldn't access my email or social media. I retrieved my ID from my old backpack, thank goodness I had kept it on me, and set up a new bank account. I didn't have much in there, but at least it was mine. I texted a group chat with my close friends, informing them not to share my location or who I was with if my parents contacted them. Some thought I was being dramatic, but I was done caring about others' opinions. What really enraged me was that about a week after I left, my mum called Atlas's house. His mum answered, and I could hear her crying from the kitchen, claiming I was out of control and she was scared for my safety, begging me to come home. She said I had mental health issues and needed her, worried I might harm myself. Atlas's mum handed me the phone and exited the room. I told my mum I wasn't returning, and she immediately dropped the act, yelling about how I was embarrassing her, how the neighbors were asking questions, how I was ruining everything. She warned that if I didn't return by Friday, she'd eat, cut me off, and sell all my belongings. I responded, "Go ahead." She hung up. That's when I decided I wouldn't let her win. I wasn't going to wallow in self-pity while she tarnished my reputation to anyone willing to listen. If she wanted to play dirty, so would I. I began with the things I knew would hit hardest. My parents were obsessed with their image, with family gatherings, with looking like the ideal family. Every year, my mum hosted extravagant events, posting countless photos, bragging about her wonderful life and how proud she was of her son. All of it fake. I went on her main social media and commented on one of her public posts, simply suggesting she try being nicer to her child next time. She deleted it within 5 minutes. I messaged a few cousins, revealing the truth and sending screenshots. Some believed me, some didn't, but at least the truth was out. Then I started thinking bigger. My parents had always managed the family finances. I knew they were tight, on cash, despite their pretense of everything being fine. My dad had once asked me to sign some forms for college, which I never did, because I knew they needed me to co-sign a loan, probably due to their poor credit. When they began texting me about important paperwork that would help the family, I ignored them. I knew if I signed anything, they'd rack up debt in my name and leave me to deal with it. They soon grew desperate. My mum threatened to call the police and claim I had stolen from them, but she never did. I told her if she attempted that, I would expose every message she ever sent, every voicemail, every screenshot. I even sent her a photo of my ID and my new address, not Atlas's, just to prove I was fine and not hiding. She didn't reply. Finally, my dad texted after about a month, saying simply, "We need to talk." I told him if it was about money, to forget it. He accused me of being ungrateful and stated that family sacrifices for one another. I replied, "It didn't seem like you sacrificed much except your self-respect." He blocked me. Here's the part that made me realize they were genuinely worried. One of my aunts messaged me, informing me that my parents were fighting constantly now. My dad was sleeping in the guest room, while my mum was telling everyone I was lost and in need of help. My cousin Paisley mentioned that my mum had tried to persuade her to convince me to return, but Paisley simply told her I wasn't interested in a fake family. Group chats with family grew strange. People stopped inviting my parents to gatherings. I kept my head down, took on odd jobs, and saved every penny. My parents attempted to sell my old belongings, but all they had were clothes and miscellaneous junk. They called about my laptop, claiming it was family property, but I told them to keep it. I had wiped everything clean. What they truly desired was control, not cash. So I made sure they couldn't reach me. I set up mail forwarding, changed all my crucial information, and ensured they had no access to anything tied to my name. I even contacted the credit bureaus and placed alerts on my accounts, just to be safe. I wasn't taking any chances. The aftermath was strange. I started encountering people at school who had heard I was spiraling or that I was in trouble. I just laughed it off. Some labeled me a jerk for going public, but I didn't care. I wanted people to know what truly happened. My parents wanted everyone to see them as victims, that they simply had a rebellious child. But I wasn't playing that game. They aimed to control the narrative, but I wasn't allowing it. So, you could say I went nuclear. I didn't break any laws or engage in anything shady. I just ensured they couldn't exploit me anymore. I severed every avenue they could use to interfere in my life. I told them that if they attempted anything, I would go fully public. I wasn't afraid of them anymore. Now, some time has passed, and I'm still figuring things out. But I know they're suffering. I hear from cousins that they're barely making ends meet. They can't refinance the house, can't secure loans, and can't host their ideal family dinners because the truth is out now. My dad's pride is shattered, and my mum's reputation is in tatters. If they wanted me to pay for their disappointments, I'm making sure they're paying too. Final update. I realize it's been years since my last update, but life kept throwing things my way, and I didn't want to think about my parents at all. I moved out, stayed away, and bounced around a bit, but honestly, I managed fine. Nothing perfect, not even great, but okay. I never blocked their numbers, just muted them, so occasionally I'd see random texts from my mum about the holidays, or my dad sending links to news stories as if I was supposed to care. I never responded. I had said what I needed to say the night I left, and I meant it. The strangest thing happened last month. I was in my kitchen, boiling water for noodles, when my phone buzzed with a voicemail. I glanced at the screen and saw it was my dad's number. I barely remembered his voice at this point, but I played it anyway. I could hear him breathing heavily, as if he had been crying. Genuinely, not just shedding fake tears for sympathy. He said he needed to talk to me, that he was sorry, that there were things he needed me to know, and could I please call him back? His voice cracked. He sounded older than I recalled. It was surreal. I let the message sit for a few hours going about my day, scrolling through TikTok, watching YouTube, even doing laundry. Every few minutes, I would pull up the voicemail and listen again, wondering if I had missed something. I didn't call him. I just texted Atlas. "Yo, dude, guess who left me a crying voicemail?" He replied with a meme, which I guess is how we cope now. The following day, I received another voicemail, this time from my mum. She wasn't crying, just angry, claiming I was being petty, that I was ruining their lives. She warned that if I didn't call back soon, I would regret it. I deleted it. I took a screenshot of my dad's missed call and sent it to my cousin Paisley. She replied, "Yeah, things are getting bad over there. Don't let them guilt you." She mentioned that my mum was telling everyone I had abandoned them, but nobody really believed it anymore. Here's the backstory on why things were deteriorating for them, in case anyone thinks I'm fabricating this for karma or whatever. After I left, my parents' financial situation worsened significantly. My dad attempted to refinance the house 3 times, but since I refused to co-sign anything and had alerts on my credit, the banks kept turning them down. They had some debts, not enormous, but substantial enough that missing payments tightened their finances. My mum tried to host family gatherings, but after I revealed the truth about what had transpired, no one wanted to attend. My dad grew, increasingly isolated. Even his own brother stopped visiting. I suppose people simply grew weary of the drama. They attempted to tap into my accounts, but since I had changed everything, they couldn't. Losing that control consumed them. I heard from Paisley that their house was falling apart. Leaky roof, broken dishwasher, all of it. My mum didn't want to admit it due to embarrassment. My dad tried to fix things himself, but he wasn't handy. So often it just got worse. They started arguing more, with loud fights audible from the yard. I think some neighbors even called the cops once because they were concerned it might escalate to violence, but nothing ever came of it. Just more shouting and slamming doors. After listening to those voicemails, I decided to call my dad back, mostly out of curiosity rather than nervousness. He answered on the first ring. For a moment, he just breathed into the phone before beginning to speak. He explained they were on the verge of losing the house, that they had nowhere to go, that he needed my assistance. He expressed his regret, claiming he should have never allowed my mum to say those things and that he should have protected me. He asked if we could meet just once to discuss some paperwork, and I told him straight, "If this is about money, forget it. I'm not signing anything. I'm not bailing you out." He insisted it wasn't about that, but I could tell he was lying. He attempted to guilt me, saying, "You're our only child. Family is supposed to help one another." I replied, "You didn't help me when I needed you. Now it's your turn to face the consequences." He fell silent, and I could hear my mum in the background yelling at him to give her the phone. I hung up. A couple of days later, I received a letter in the mail which looked official, so I opened it. It was from their bank requesting me to co-sign a loan. They must have used my information, hoping I would sign whatever they sent. I photographed the letter and emailed the bank, stating, "Do not contact me again. I'm not responsible for my parents' debts." Then I sent a group text to the extended family with a screenshot of the letter and a brief message, stating, "My parents are attempting to use my name for loans I don't want. Please don't inquire about it again." Paisley responded with a thumbs up, while others remained silent, but no one pursued me. That's when it dawned on me that they were genuinely out of options, not just pretending. I heard through the grapevine that the bank finally foreclosed on their house. My parents moved into a small apartment on the outskirts of town. My mum sent one last text, lamenting how I had ruined everything and hoping I was happy. I simply blocked her. I didn't feel anything, just done. I occasionally see my dad at the grocery store or around town. He looks weary, and sometimes he attempts to wave, but I keep walking. I'm not bitter. I just don't care anymore. I did what I had to do. They wanted to break me, but I broke them first. If that makes me the villain in their story, so be it. At least I'm not the one crying on voicemails, begging for help from the child I tried to destroy. Some might suggest I should forgive them, or that family is everything. But honestly, I owe them nothing. They made their choices, and now they have to live with the consequences. I'm moving forward. I have my own life now, and I won't look back.